Gidani. Wazani. But before then, I am Anthony Ogagmo. You're welcome to the show. We will now go for the news tidbits, where we report some of the labor issues that happened during the week.
The Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSUN, on Tuesday suspended strike, which started on Monday. JUSUN announced the suspension in a communique issued after its meeting with the representative of the Chief of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun. The communique, signed by all stakeholders present, said that this was after long deliberations on issues that led to the declaration of the industrial action by the union. According to the communique, the following agreement with the stakeholders for 1 month for negotiations. The communique added that subsequently, upon the commitment of the CJN, JUSUN, and organs, after due consideration, agreed to suspend the ongoing industrial strike action. Civil servants under the Federal Workers Forum have appealed to the federal government to pay outstanding arrears, including wage awards and promotion allowances. In a letter addressed to President Tinubu and copied to the Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives, the forum urged urgent action to address long-standing issues affecting federal workers. The group noted that the challenges had worsened, particularly since the removal of fuel subsidy. The letter, signed by Andrew Emelieze, National Coordinator, Ito Robon, National Secretary, and Razak Oseni, Public Secretary, and emphasized the growing frustration among workers. They noted that 10 months had passed since the implementation of the new national minimum wage, but full compliance remained a problem. They also demanded payment of the 40% peculiar allowance in June salaries, along with 10 months arrears and the introduction of a cost of living allowance by June. The group condemned the selective payment of wage awards and urged the government to ensure all ministries, departments, and agencies receive the first tranche and any pending arrears. Stakeholders gathered in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, a few days ago to deliberate on occupational safety and health in commemoration of the World Day for Safety and Health at Work. The event, organized by the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, was themed Revolutionizing Health and Safety, the Role of AI and Digitization at Work. It was hosted by the Fund's Health, Safety and Environment Department to explore the integration of artificial intelligence and digitalization and their roles in enhancing workers' safety and health. Among the participants were members of the National Assembly, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Assembly, and representatives of organized labor. Speaking at the event, NSITF's Managing Director Oluwaseun Falaye advocated the adoption of AI and digitization to improve workplace safety in Nigeria. However, he cautioned that while embracing technology, care must be taken not to overlook the fundamental principles that undermine occupational safety and health. Falaye explained that AI would bring innovations to workplace safety by transforming predictions, prevention, and protection strategies, which in turn would improve and enhance overall safety and well-being at work. In a landmark judgment that underscores the increasing judicial scrutiny of workplace abuse and arbitrary termination in Nigeria's labor sector, the National Industrial Court Ibadan Division has ordered a manufacturing firm, Shongai Technologies Limited, and its operations manager, Mr. Nisavali Dudeke, to pay a total of 6.1 million naira to a former employee, Mr. Omone Andy Robinson, over what the court termed unlawful termination and inhumane treatment. Justice J.D. Peters delivered the verdict and brought before the court by the complainant, Mr. Robinson, who worked with the company as a machine operator until June 2020 when his employment was terminated. The court's ruling, delivered on April 9, 2025, followed years of legal proceedings initiated by the claimant after he was reportedly assaulted at the workplace and later dismissed without notice or stated reason. Mr. Robinson, through his legal counsel, Mr. Femi Aborishade and Ms. Rashida Akinrinde, argued that his dismissal was not only procedurally defective, but also a consequence of an incident of workplace violence carried out by the first defendant, Mr. Dudeke, in his capacity as operations manager.
Thank you for staying tuned to us. You are still listening to Labor Forum on Citizen 93.7 FM Abuja. You could also join us on live streaming on Citizen FM 93.7. Just type in Labor Forum. You can also listen to us online on www.citizenfm.ng or follow us on any of our social media platforms. Facebook at Citizen FM Abuja, Instagram at Citizen FM 937, and on X at Citizen FM 937. Today, my guest is Comrade Musa Wazani, Chairman, FCT, Laboratory Scientist of Nigeria. Comrade, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all listeners.
Good. In starting this program, I want to go on a little, historical excursion about your profession. The little research I made, I got to know that the late Pa Raphael Shonekon, the uncle of the former head of interim national government, Chief Ernest Shonekon, was the first medical laboratory technologists, as they were then known, to qualify from London in 1950. And by 1968, then General Yakubu Gowon government signed the Medical Laboratory Technologies Decree. However, I think the icing of your cake was in 2003 when President Olusegun Obasanjo signed the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria Act 11 of 2003. The act, that is, Act 11 of 2003, made the profession of medical laboratory science what it is today. So please, briefly, tell us how has been the journey so far from the year 2003.
Good afternoon once more again, listeners. The body is called the Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria. So I'm chairing the FCT branch, that's the state branch.
Okay.
Now, the journey so far, globally, the profession is either called, like in Nigeria, is called medical laboratory scientist. It can be biomedical laboratory scientist in other nations or countries. It can also be medical laboratory technologists in other nations or countries. And in other nations, the terminology differs. It can also be called medical laboratory pathologist. So that is how the nomenclature is. And this profession is being practiced globally. It's not unique to Nigeria. And it evolved over years, just like any other profession, whether the legal profession, the medical doctors, the pharmacists, start from somewhere. Some at diploma level, then before BSc, and so it's an evolving profession. So the medical laboratory scientist, just like you said rightly, the Act 11 2003 is the act that guides the practice of the profession in Nigeria. And there is a body, a governing body headed by board, that's the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria, that have this mandate or status to regulate the practice in Nigeria. Now, the training of medical laboratory scientists starts by, just like other sister profession, writing your JAM, getting a score of JAM based on the university of choice. Then the duration is 5 years. After 5 years of study, then there's an internship program that deals with mentorship of the professional that has graduated from university. Thereafter, youth service. Then you now have a full-fledged practicing license to practice. And the profession is divided into different disciplines. You have the microbiologist, you have the hematologist, you have the clinical chemist or chemical pathologist, you have the histoscientist, you diversify in it.
And make a follow-up question. We know that before now, pathologists were in charge of medical laboratories. But today, I think, can you tell us what happened and how you scientists were able to pull through?
Okay, thank you for this question. Just like I said earlier, globally, the medical profession starts with one indivisible body, like medicine. Over time, it started splitting to pharmacy, medical lab, nursing, and stuff like that, if you look at the historical perspective. And we have evolved to a level of professionalism and diversification and teamwork. And the reality is every profession has their own training path. If someone goes through the university and does his MSc and PhD over 10 years in the university studying one particular thing, it will not also be fair for another professional body that have not gone through these years of training to claim to know better than this expert in that field. And that has created a lot of conflict, industrial conflict at the hospital level. And as responsible and professional, some of these conflicts that arose from, like you rightly say, interest-driven, whether in terms of procurement, in terms of one is insisting to head the medical laboratory scientist and conduct exams, professional exams for such fellows, and the person does not have the requisite knowledge to do that. That led the professional body to court, and we have more than 21 court judgments in favor of the profession, saying that the medical laboratory scientist of Nigeria is a distinct profession. It is not a pathology profession. And the pathology is also key in working relationship, because the pathology also interface between the lab and the patient of interest. So I think there's need for harmonious working relationship, and there's a need for us to work within our defined borders and boundaries, because the medical laboratory profession scientist is also trained in terms of provisional diagnosis, just for the purpose to relate with the pathologist. Just like the pathologists have some insight about the laboratory, just to relate with the lab scientist when result is being dished out from the laboratory. But that not to say it is meant for any of the professional body to practice.
Okay.
Yes.
One worry people have is this issue of wrong diagnosis. What is your association doing to ensure? Because I think the core of medicine today is the issue of diagnosis. So how could you improve on this complaint of wrong diagnosis?
Thank you so very much. To get a reliable result entails a lot of things. We have the laboratory quality management system that speaks about processes that lead to a reliable laboratory outcome. That's laboratory results. We also have the component of the regulatory body that's supposed to be up and doing in checkmating the activities of quacks and ensure that professionals also work in line with the set standards and guidelines towards result production. And also there's a component of reagents that is being imported into the country and its own regulations. So it's a gamut of issues that lead to that. However, what the profession is doing now, I think the Federal Ministry of Health, I need to commend the Federal Ministry of Health by directing the health facilities should pursue accreditation. Now, the advantage of accreditation is that you have a standard process of doing things. And if you go to an accredited lab, for instance, if you go to Buhari General Hospital, it's an accredited lab. So thumbs up to the FCT management for giving that support for that lab to acquire accreditation. What it means is that whatever result that comes out from that lab, you are likely to trust that result. So imagine a lab that is accredited and a lab that has not even subject itself toward accreditation. You are not likely to have the same outcome, because in accreditation there are 12 quality essentials that one need to be familiar with. When you talk of equipment, when you talk of personnel, when you talk of process control, process improvement, facility and safety, procurement, incident management, there are a lot of components in the 12 quality essentials. That means an accredited lab is obeying processes based on the prescription of ISO 15189 and is being updated. So if that is done correctly, and if every laboratory, if government can support, because accreditation is not easy, it is capital intensive. So government need to also support this laboratory, both private and public, not just the laboratory, the entire health system, the entire professional bodies. If they acquire accreditation, I want to assure you that even the so-called medical tourism will have been mitigated at that level, because accreditation will address a lot of things that has to do with procurement, that has to deals with personnel, that has to deal with the facility, that has to deal with the processes that is being that you need to go through for laboratory result to be reliable.
Okay, I think you have a group who may not be full members of your association, the lab technicians. We are aware that your number is not enough to service the whole country. Then what is the role of the lab technicians in your setup?
Okay, just like the lab technician is a low-level manpower in the lab, that they have their role well spelled out. Usually, they are being tutored or mentored or schooled in private or these primary health institutions. Now, if the regulation is strong and is supposed to, and is what it's supposed to be, there are certain analytical procedures that the lab technician cannot carry, because the lab technician is not exposed, is not groomed, is not trained to do that. And when the lab technician goes ahead to do such, your guess is as good as mine. The result is not going to be reliable, and it will not also be fair to the Nigerian populace. Now, they are guided by the same regulatory body. The Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria gave them a working permit, and the lab technician cannot open a lab or cannot operate in the absence of medical laboratory scientists. They have a role to play, and the role is well defined, and even that role that is well defined must be supervised by a medical laboratory scientist. That means the process in processing of these samples, they play a role there. They ease all the stress, and you know that laboratory testing involve a lot of technicalities and a lot of knowledge for you to identify a particular parasite, or for you to identify a particular tumor markers. You know, so a lab technician is not even trained to do those things. So when a lab technician now is dishing out results, it can be considered as a quack, because it is not accepted, because they are not trained. It's more of like you get another player outside the laboratory doing something and dishing out results. And you know, these machines, it's just like a computer. Whatever you put into this machine is what you get. But there are quality measures that the professional put in place to ensure that anything that comes out from this machine is of reliable, and that product can be defended anywhere. And that's why we are talking about interlaboratory comparisons. There are proficiency testing tools that is being used, that different laboratories will be given blind sample and see the outcome of their testing. And through that means, you'll be able to identify laboratory that is doing well or laboratory that is not performing well, so that that laboratory can be mentored to produce a reliable result. And all these things, I think it has to do with the regulatory bodies, because they have the statutory responsibility to visit all these labs, look at their operation, look at the strength of the personnel, look at the professionalisms of that personnel, before they can be able to give license and say, yes, we are satisfied that you can bring out results for the public.
Okay, outside the laboratory, how do you engage your members and promote their welfare?
Thank you very much. this question to me is so dear to my heart. Just yesterday, we lost one of our member, Dr. Yetunde Obaze, who was buried, and she was heading a laboratory in a hospital not long ago. Now, the truth is that government need to look into the enumeration of our colleagues, and our colleagues need to be given a special welfare beyond medical laboratory. I'm talking about health workers generally, yes. Because it is not fair that we are at the watchword, at the gate of diseases, and yet we are being struck by this ailment. And when we are struck by this ailment, we are helpless, especially when it requires resources, huge resources that you need to even go out of the country or get to a level. There are resources that we need to take care of ourselves, but you now see us becoming helpless. And it's not really too fair. I think the government need to look at a package for healthcare workers so that when they are challenged with terminal illness or they are challenged with hospital-related illnesses, they should be able to handle that within the resources that flow from the government. Now, this is one of the major welfare that I want to promote among not just our members, among all health workers. I know we have lost some doctors, some nurses recently, and at the end of the day, most of this effort to treat them comes from out of pocket, which I think the government can look at it, Labour can look at it and see how those things can be mitigated. No, so more so, the social scientists will tell you that performance is motivation times ability or professionalism. Beyond your knowledge, beyond your professionalism, beyond your ability to produce result, you need to be motivated. You don't have somebody that is working for a Asokoro hospital, maybe he's living in Masaka, and he cannot use his car to drive to the office and go back. He will be stressed, and he will also be working hard to make sure that traffic and other things. So I think beyond the association will stand and plead with relevant government agency to look at some of these issues that has to do with welfare of healthcare workers.
Okay, we'll go on a break. We'll be back.
Is present. Industrial action by
Okay. You are welcome back to this week's edition of Labour Forum. As I said earlier, you could join us on live streaming on Citizen FM 93.7. Just type in Labour Forum. You can also listen to us online on www.citizenfm.ng or follow us on any of our social media platforms. Facebook at Citizen FM Abuja, Instagram at Citizen FM 937, and on X at Citizen FM 937. Yes, you are welcome back. You're welcome back to the show.
Okay, thank you very much.
This Japa syndrome.
Yes.
How has it affected your profession, and what is the impact on service delivery in the country?
Yes, the impact is huge because you have trained personnel being taken out of the country. Imagine a citizen that has been trained in-house, got all the required experience, and I want to tell you that the UK, for instance, and other Western world, they don't even want to do certification exam this time around. They give you direct employment where your monthly package will be more than 20 times what you have been paid in the country. So it's really affecting service delivery. And I think, just like what I said earlier, if the staffs are well motivated, the salary package is really poor compared to other sister nations, even African nations. The capacity for professionals, health professionals, I want to talk about health professionals, to also match up with their contemporaries outside Nigeria. They can't. And that is what is also is an incentive that is being used to drain our colleagues. And every month you see we are losing our colleagues. They just call you and say, we are leaving. After COVID-19, I think most nations started sourcing out professionals, and Nigeria is not left behind. In fact, even some of us that have not applied, we are being reached out severally and being pleaded to move. So that is as serious as that. And I know both government facilities and private facilities are suffering, because the new professionals that are being bred from the university, no matter the knowledge, even you are a first class, there are some things that you can only acquire through experience.
Yes.
And they will need a mentor. They will need to be mentored to reach to that level of professionals that have moved out of the nation. And that also affects quality service. So I don't know, and this is nothing that the professional bodies can address. It can only be government that will be able to address this fact. And you can imagine where people will be reached out even when they don't apply, and will be given incentives for the need to go and work outside. So it's a big challenge. And I think the labor, the Ministry of Health has to sit down, look at these issues and see how it can be mitigated or reduced to the barest minimum.
Okay, that brings me to the issue. You talked of COVID-19. That has brought me now to the issue that suddenly COVID-19 pandemic made your profession, the medical laboratory science, the most important profession in the health system. COVID-19 testing was exclusively done by medical laboratory scientists all over the world. What was the experience like during COVID? And what lessons have been learned? And what will you advise to the government in terms of preventing and fighting diseases?
Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, I need to also condole with the families of our members that lost their life during this battle. And more so, just like you rightly said, we're at the forefront. We were at the forefront. When samples is being collected, it's the medical laboratory scientists that will be exposed to the sample. And if you look at the laboratories across Nigeria, you have laboratories are classified into level, up to level 4. You have BSL 1, BSL 2, BSL 3, BSL 4. Now, any infectious diseases that does not have cure is being treated or managed at least at BSL 3 or BSL 4. Now, during COVID experience, we are at BSL 2. BSL 2, BSL is all about safety, biomedical safety. Is safety of laboratory, the component of safety. There are laboratories that you enter with your masks, you enter with oxygen to be able to operate. There are laboratories that you have to prepare before you enter. When you are coming out, you prepare before you come out. Such laboratories supposed to be isolated from the public or community or society. Such laboratory also supposed to have the requisite biosafety cabinet. They have biosafety level where when you are making analysis, even the air of the laboratory is not the air you are breathing. The air that enters the laboratory is filtered. The air that goes out of the laboratory is filtered. But that was not the case when COVID came. Our members were exposed, and yet they stood their ground and fought COVID by identifying these viruses for the Nigerian citizens to be treated. Secondly, the PCR, polymerase chain reaction centers. It baffled us that when federal government was making huge attempt to support state to establish PCR centers, state, we are waiting for federal government. Despite resources at their disposal, I'll tell you one thing. At that point in time, the cost of establishing PCR machine, which I've said this in a channel television, was less than 25 million naira, apart from the structure. But it baffles us that the government have to wait at the state and local government for PCR machine to be, because the COVID virus is an RNA virus. And as you rightly know, the mode of transmission is by droplets, air droplets. And the receptors are in the lungs, ACE2, which once the dosage of the droplet is inhaled, the person automatically get that virus. Now, the PCR that was established across the state, it was our colleagues that ran it, because it's a complex laboratory process. And we approached the government. We gave the government pool of more than 200 personnel to run that test. But unfortunately, I would say, most of these PCR today, they are not being used optimally. And I think the government has to look at all these centers and revamp this PCR, because we have been having re-emergence issues today, not just COVID. We heard of Lassa fever. These are viral disease. We had of the Ebola and the COVID. So when there are incidents like this, you need PCR to be able, polymerase chain reaction platform, to be able to identify these pathogens. So it is really a mixed feeling that I'm reacting to this way. That our people stood their ground, and I know that we lost a medical doctor from Lagos, if you recall, and people lost before that virus was able to identify. So my call now is, we need to have reference public health laboratories that is well equipped at that classified level, maybe level 3 or level 4 of biosafety, to be able to deal with these pathogens at minimal risks to the laboratorians. That's just the message that I'm trying to bring. Thank you.
It's all right. Of recent, about 2 months ago, the National University Commission approved Doctor of Medical Laboratory Science as first degree instead of the Bachelors of Laboratory Science. What improvement or what impact do you think this will have to your profession? Is it necessary? You're not hearing.
Okay. Okay.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I was saying that about 2 months ago, the National University Commission came up with a doctorate program for laboratory science. rather than the normal bachelors. Is this necessary?
Very, very apt question. It is necessary in the fact that it's just not change of nomenclature. They didn't just say medical laboratory scientist will be addressed as doctor or medical laboratory scientist. There are so many components that is brought into. Now, additional year to accommodate all other skills and knowledge that is not just sufficient for 5 years program. Now, the professionals that are being produced from the university, the level of training that they need to go through before they will become full-fledged scientists with a relevant experience, this approval will help in inculcating those extra knowledge at the university level, so that, the truth is, as health professionals, one thing that we must be conscious of it, and one thing the Nigerian public must be conscious of it, is if you are allowed to practice without proper training, there are mistakes that might be committed that might not even be known, with their consequence to the Nigerian populace. And I think in the wisdom of the association and National University Commission, they felt that this knowledge that is lacking, contemporary knowledge that need to be inculcated into the scheme of training, you need to have additional years to spend in the university to acquire that. So it's on the strength of that.
Excuse me. I felt like other professions. You get a bachelor's, and if need be, you go back to acquire a master's or a doctorate. So don't you think that would have been a better arrangement?
Okay. Master means you have mastered what you are doing.
Yes.
Generally, masters, if you look at the program of masters, you are supposed to even make a research proposal. That means you have observed a gap in the field of your practice, and you want to master that process. Not every professional that will go for masters. License is given to you to practice after your youth service with the 5 years program. And it is not sufficient. Just like other professional bodies, this is not unique to Nigeria. It's not unique to Nigeria. Some educationists, experts, look at this and felt the need for that extra year to be added, extra curriculum, structure the process, and award them with Doctor of Medical Lab Science. So even year 3, there are universities that do year 3, and you go for masters. It depends on the syllabus of it. So I want to assure you that it is the right thing to do at this particular point in time, to encourage members of the public to key into this profession, acquire the relevant knowledge, and be more useful and productive to the Nigerian populace.
Okay. It is said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. You are the chairman of the association here in FCT, but it is common knowledge that at the national level, you currently have 2 presidents, and even your national secretariat has been closed down by a factional president, the Workers' Act, and for over 1 year now, the association workers have not been paid. Your association account has also been closed by court order. Our listeners will want to know what is going on in the profession of medical laboratory and what is the way out.
Yeah, I want to assure the member of the public, as essential as the body is, we have gotten a way out. Let me start from top bottom. Of recent, the members of the association activated provision of the constitution that says when there is conflict that is not resolved, the national executive officers shall convey a special general meeting where such conflict will be resolved. And I want to tell you, the member of the public, that that has been done. Now, a special general meeting was called and decision was taken. The two factions were asked to step aside pending when court decision will be out. Then the vice chairman 2, VP2 of Northeast, was given the mandate to lead the professional body pending when we'll have the decisions of the court. However, let me start this way. Sometimes in about 4 or 5 years ago, election was held in Ebonyi State. Our profession ran a delegate election. The election was held in Ebonyi State. Then we had Professor James Dlamini that emerged as the winner of that election with more than 230-something vote delegates. The second runner is Dr. Ifeanyi Kasmia with 130-something votes, if I'm not mistaken. The third runner, Dr. Uche Odeyinma, got 12 votes. So Dr. Uche went to court and challenged the eligibility of Professor James Dlamini and Dr. Ifeanyi Kasmia. His claim, then Professor James Dlamini was the secretary of the body before he presented himself to contest for the position of the president. Dr. Ifeanyi Kasmia.
Sorry. I think you said the matter is in court. So you may not need to go into all those details.
No, I'm not going to the court issue. I'm just trying to give the facts on ground. I'm not saying court ruling this or that. What I'm saying is that the matter is in court, but I want to give you the historical perspective that led to the matter to the court.
No, that may not that may not be necessary. Okay. As we wind down, what message do you have for your members?
Yes, the crisis, the conflict has come to an end. Now, I know everybody was disturbed. Even the Ministry of Health was disturbed. And the Ministry of Health has reached out severally and pushed for reconciliation. And it was lingering till when the SGM sat and took this position. So the association is back, and every other lost ground will be gotten. I'm just talking on behalf of the national body because I'm a state chairman, and we are integral and important component of the national body. So for us, peace has been restored. They should support the current initiative up to when we will be able to resolve the issues. And the two gladiators, one was in the meeting, he has submitted to it, and we pray that very soon the court will also look into this matter and bring their verdict very soon, so that any of the two gladiators can come and lead, as it were.
Okay. Now that you are assuring us that peace has been restored, Do you have any short or long-term goals that you envisage with the peace that will be achieved?
Yes, fortunately, the way the Act 11, 2003 is designed, the professional body have a very vital role in the regulation of a vital role in the regulation of the Medical and Laboratory Science Council, because the board is being nominated by the professional body.
Okay.
And they sit and guide the process. So the issues of the QUAC, the issues of all these accreditations and interlaboratory comparisons, anytime the professional body and the government regulatory body work in harmony, you are likely to have maximum impact, and the outcome will be wonderful, even to the populace. So for me, I want to assure everybody that everything is done in good faith, and very soon the assurance I'm giving the members of the public is to ensure that the laboratory that they visit all over the country, any result that comes out of it is going to be reliable, is going to be reproducible. That is, anywhere you go, you are likely to have the same result. And that is the goal. And that is what we are going to be pushing for. And we have a partnership, like in FCT, we have a partnership with a body called Lab Tracker that will be doing interlaboratory comparison free of charge for most of those laboratories that are on board it. Because everybody is concerned with the outcome. You can't go to 3 labs and have 3 different results. It's not good for anybody. And that is the goal for FCT that we start with. And I'm telling you, in the nearest future, it will be things of the past.
I think I have to thank you, Comrade Musa Wazani, Chairman, FCT Laboratory
Association of Laboratory Science.
Association of Laboratory Science of Nigeria, FCT Council.
FCT branch.
Branch Council is the same thing. We thank you for your intervention, for your views. It has been most interesting speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Listeners, especially our comrades, this is our package on Labor Forum today. Join us again next week when we come your way on the program Labor Forum. I am Anthony Ogagmo. Bye for now.